Good morning students, welcome back to our online sessions of Science class 9. Now, I hope in this pandemic situations you and your family will be safe. So without unnecessary, I request you to don't go outside your homes. So stay home, stay safe. Now in the previous class of Science, in a specific form of biology, we are discussing about the structure of cell. Okay, what is called cell, who found the cell, why the unicellular or multicellular organisms can be bifurcated, how the division of labor of work that can be seen. Okay, so this also we are discussing about the cell membrane, why cell membrane is called as a selective permeable membrane. So these are the generally topics that we are discussing in our previous classes. Okay, now let us move ahead. We are discussing today about the four main topics, that is structure of nucleus, cell wall, plasmolysis, DNA and the diffusion process. Now, if we are discussing about that, so what do you mean by the structure of nucleus? If you seen that, what do you mean by the structure of nucleus? So, if you implement in that structure of nucleus, the nucleus is a very important structure of each and every cell. That is a very much important structure. Nucleus that can be divided into the three main structures, in which nuclear membrane, nucleoplasms and nucleus. Okay, these are the three main structure of the nucleus. The nucleus structure can be divided into the three main forms: nuclear membrane, nucleoplasm and the nucleus. Now nucleus is a very important structure of each and every cell. It is like a main structure which is having a round shape. It is looking a round shape and which is situated into the middle of cell. Okay, so always be nucleus that can be situated into the middle of cell. Now nucleus is surrounded by the nuclear membrane. That nucleus is surrounded by the nuclear membrane, and that nuclear membrane evolves, which forms a nuclear envelope. The nucleus that should be surrounded by the nuclear membrane, which evolves a nuclear envelope, which generally used to bifurcate into the outer formation and inner, outer membrane and inner membrane. Now that nuclear envelope involves several forms of nuclear membrane, which is a liquid structure of nucleus in the form of membrane, which generally contain the pores. I will marking here, it is called nuclear pores. Okay? So generally this type of nuclear pores are mostly used in a nucleus for the respiration process. So that is the structure. There is outer membrane and inner membrane. Now the inner membrane of nucleus having a two main forms, that is called nucleus and chromatin. Having a two main structure, that is called nucleus and chromatin. Now we are discussing about the nucleus. What is nucleus? Now nucleus is what? Generally nucleus is not considered as a liquid substances, which is generally one of the number or more than one number that can be seen into the nucleus. Nucleus are generally seen in one number or more than one number, that is called as a nucleus. And the main substance which generally having a synthesized into the nucleus, that is called protein. Protein that should be absorbed. Now the synthesization of this type of protein as a form of nucleus, the ribosome that can be originated from the nucleus. Ribosomes that can be originated from the nucleus. So there is an absence of nuclear membrane. Nuclear membrane cannot be evolved in the form of nucleus because it should be an outer membrane. So it generally contain a protein. So generation of ribosomes that we generally seen from the nucleus. Now next is called chromatin. Chromatin what? Generally a fiber-like mass intertwined into the chromosome. It is a like mass of intertwined which should be seen into the nucleus. Okay. So chromosomes generally having a specific substance, chromatins generally having a specific substance that is called chromosomes. And chromosomes generally contain the DNA. Okay. And DNA is what? Generally it is a genetic material which is used for the inheritance formation. So genetic material which is inherited from one generation to another generation, that DNA material that can be stored into the chromosomes and which can be contained by the chromatin into the nucleus. So that is the structure of nucleus. Clear? Now we are discussing about next is called cell wall. What do you mean by the cell wall? Generally, if you seen about the cell wall, there is a protective layer. If you consider as a cell wall, it is like a protective layer of cell. So cell membrane, generally we discussing about yesterday about cell membrane. Cell membrane is what? It is a protective layer, or it is also called as the boundary of cell, that is called cell membrane. But over and above of the cell membrane, there is in a plant cells which are in an additional covering layer, that is called cell wall. In a plant cell having a cell membrane, so over and above of the cell membrane there is an additional cover of layer which can be seen into the plant cell, that is generally called as a cell wall. उसको हम cell wall कहते हैं. Now cell wall freely allows all the substances which can be permit all the substances which can be entry into the cell. All the substances that can be entry into the cell freely permits all the substances. That is about the cell wall. Now what is the function of cell wall? Cell wall क्या काम करता है? तो जैसे अभी मैंने समझाया कि the main function that permits all the substances which enter into the cell, सारे जो substances है उसको cell में वो permit करता है, that can be easily enter into the cell, as well as cell wall that gives the mechanical strength to the plants. अभी mechanical strength मतलब inner formation of energy. So cell wall generally provide the mechanical strength to the plant, and it having a structure that should be made by the cellulose, hemicellulose and pectin. तो जो cell wall का जो main structure होता है, that can be made by the cellulose, hemicellulose and pectin. By using that substances cell wall that can be made up. It also protect the cell membrane. It also protect the cell membrane and also cytoplasm. So generally cell wall protect the cell membrane and also protect the cytoplasm. It generally giving the mechanical strength as well as it generally maintain the shape of cell. शेप जो सेल का होता है उसको मेंटेन करने के लिए भी यूजफुल होता है. इट इज हैविंग ऑल्सो मेन फंक्शन दैट लॉस ऑफ वाटर, जो वाटर का एब्जॉर्प्शन होता है या फिर जो लॉस होता है वाटर का, इस प्रोसेस को आप क्या कहते हो? प्लाज्मोलाइसिस प्रोसेस कहते हो. उसका भी मेन फंक्शन कौन इंप्लीमेंट करता है? सेल वॉल. तो इट ऑल्सो generally prevents the loss of water as a form of absorption from the cell, that is generally called as a plasmolysis process, which is only be protected by the cell wall. तो सेल वॉल के मेन फंक्शंस हो गए. ठीक है. अभी यहाँ पे एक वर्ड मैंने यूज किया प्लाज्मोलाइसिस. सेल वॉल के अंदर एक वर्ड मैंने यूज किया दैट इज कॉल्ड प्लाज्मोलाइसिस. तो दैट इज व्हाट? लॉस ऑफ वाटर एज अ फॉर्म ऑफ एब्जॉर्प्शन फ्रॉम द सेल, दैट इज कॉल्ड प्लाज्मोलाइसिस. ऐसा मैंने अभी आपको समझाया. जिसको भी कौन प्रिवेंट करता है? दैट इज ऑल्सो प्रोटेक्टेड बाय द सेल वॉल. उसके फंक्शंस में हमने डिस्कशन किया था. तो व्हाट इज कॉल्ड प्लाज्मोलाइसिस? नाउ व्हाट इज कॉल्ड प्लाज्मोलाइसिस? तो इफ यू डिस्कसिंग अबाउट द प्लाज्मोलाइसिस, there is a concentration of any having of molecules. Concentration मतलब क्या होता है पहले तो वो समझना है. Now concentration means if I have a two glass and one glass having a 1 spoon of salt, another glass having a 2 spoon of salt. So if you taste of the first glass, it has slight lower in taste of salty. Another glass if higher in a taste of saltness. Okay. So in which having large number of solute, that is generally called as a higher concentration, and having a low amount of solute, that is called lower concentration. That is the difference, higher concentration and lower concentration. तो जिस सॉल्यूशन के अंदर कम सॉल्यूट होगा उसकी कंसंट्रेशन लो होगी, और जिस सॉल्यूशन के अंदर ज़्यादा सॉल्यूट होगा उसकी कंसंट्रेशन हाई होती है. सो प्लाज्मोलाइसिस प्रोसेस यही है कि इफ द कंसंट्रेशन ऑफ वाटर फ्रॉम द आउटसाइड ऑफ सेल is compared to the layers inside of cell. If we discussing about the concentration, if the concentration of water from the outside of cell is less than our inside of cell, then water that should be slightly that can be releases from the cell, so that should be lost as a form of water, that is called plasmolysis. The water that can be enter into the cell or maybe exist from the cell as a part of loss of water absorption, that process is called as a plasmolysis. So in this phenomenon of plasmolysis, if you seen that it should be water that can be losses from the cell as a part of diffusion from higher concentration to lower concentration, that can be moved. So that is generally called as a plasmolysis process. Next is called DNA. Now DNA is what? DNA word that can be based onto the nucleus. Now chromosomes having a specific form is a chromatin, and chromatin that contain the chromosomes. And chromosome having a main segment that is called DNA, deoxynucleic acid, that is called DNA. Now what is the main form of DNA? So DNA is a genetic material in organisms which can be found into the chromosomes as a part of chromatin, right? So DNA is a genetic material which can be found into the organism as a part of chromosomes, which is situated into the chromatin of a part of nucleus. So DNA's full form is deoxynucleic acid. So main concept of DNA is what? That is called gene, G-E-N-E. The main concept of DNA is generally considered as a gene. And gene is generally contain our hereditary information that can be contained by the genes. So if one organism that can be passes to its information as about the organism, that can be generally move as a part of genetics module of DNA, that can be copied from one organism to another organism. That is called replica of DNA. Now next is the last topic today what we have to discussing, that is called diffusion process. Diffusion process. Now diffusion is what? The molecule of any substances from the region of higher concentration to move from the lower concentration, that process is generally called as a diffusion process. Now the diffusion process in which the exchange of gases, carbon dioxide and oxygen, which is generally exchange of gases in a living organism, that having generally done by the gases of exchange method into the alveoli. Like carbon dioxide, which is released in our body as a part of respiration, and simultaneously oxygen that can be entered in our body from the atmosphere. So that gases of exchange method is a part of the diffusion process from higher concentration to lower concentration region that can be moved. So today we are discussing about the structure of nucleus as well as cell wall, plasmolysis, DNA and the diffusion process. Yesterday we were discussing about the cell membrane as well as unicellular multicellular organism is difference and how the division of labor that can be worked into the multi-organisms, as well as what is called eukaryotic cells, prokaryotic cells and what is called cell, who found the cell and how it can be worked. That is yesterday's class we discussing. Now slightly I revise the cell membrane. If we are discussing about the cell membrane, several organless cell which is present into the eukaryotic cells. So cell membrane is what? It is the outer covering layer of cell which is called boundary of cell, which is very thin, flexible and full of delicate membrane. It is also known as a selective permeable membrane. 75% of cell membrane is made by the phospholipid, while the 25% that can be made by the protein and cholesterol. So that is about the cell membrane. Okay. When we are discussing the next lecture from tomorrow, we are discussing about the cytoplasm, what is called cytoplasm. On this topic we are discussing tomorrow. Till only the topics today what we have to discussing, just revise and write down in your notebooks and practice this type of questions. So when we meet tomorrow, we will discussing on the new topics of this chapter of cell. So till students, bye.